Hey guys, I know it's been a while. I took some time for the holidays. I hope you did as well. And I hope you had a great Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever holiday you celebrate, as well as a new year. But today I'm back and I have 3 backpacking stoves to take a look at here. They're all wood burning, although they can all do alcohol as well. And I just wanted to compare them as far as price goes, performance, packability, everything. And I do have 5 stoves with me, but these 2 are pretty much the same as this. They're a little different, they're much bigger, but they're all pretty much the same thing. But we'll get into that. So let's take a look at these 3 backpacking stoves. So let's start with which one is which. This one is called the Quick Stove, and for very good reason, because all you do is open these flaps and it's essentially ready to go. This one is from Ohuhu, which is kind of a generic version of another stove. There are a lot of stoves very similar to this. This one I got because it was cheap and free 1-day delivery from Amazon. And this is probably your most common backpacking wood burning stove that you'll see out there. This design, at least, this little trapezoidal box, so to speak. And this one is from Luxada, and I got this one specifically for one reason, and that is how easy it is to set up. The way it goes together is actually really clever, and it makes it one of my favorites. And I'll explain what I mean by showing you the larger version. I got this one for Christmas actually as a present, but with this you've got to interlock all these plates, and they go kind of in a specific way. These 3 plates are the same, doesn't matter which order they're in. Then you put the bottom plate in, and it's got some grooves in there, and then you've got to finagle this front panel on, which locks downward on this side and up on this side, which isn't difficult. And this one's got some crossbars for extra stability and also to hold some smaller pots. Goes together pretty quickly. This one, on the other hand, it's hinged together. So these pieces are actually one, and they fold up really, really nice. Literally just put it together. Wrap this in, insert the slot, and then you've got this, and it comes with a little pin. And you run the pin down through that hinge, and you've got a stove. And since we've got them all out right now, I might as well go ahead and talk price. This is the Emberlit stove. It's the one I got for Christmas. It's made with 3 or 4 stainless steel, and it is easily the most expensive. It's around $42, $43. The smaller version from Luxada, this is only $20, so it's about half the price. Like I said, it's smaller, goes together faster. This, which is, again, another version of the same thing pretty much, is really cheap, and there's a reason I'm not even going to bother putting it together. This one is $11.99. I haven't even bothered using it because it is so cheap. It came and all of these little flanges were bent, and I had to bend some of them back as best I could, but it's hard to put together. And this one's from B Grit, and I just would not recommend this thing. I'm definitely sending this one back. I'm not even going to bother talking about it because it's so flimsy. Whereas the others you can't really bend like this. This one is just, it's not meant for this. This one is around $18.99, and there are tons of different versions of virtually the same thing. You can find them a little cheaper, some are a little more expensive, but pretty much around $20 for these 2, and this one is $25. You can also get this one a little cheaper, but the reason mine was $25 is I opted to get the discs. There's little fuel discs, make like a fire starter, but you can use it to actually cook with. So it comes with 2 of those inside. If you opt to get this without those, I think it's around 20 bucks as well. And let's do one last thing before we actually start cooking with these and warming up, because my hands are freezing. It's like 20-some degrees out here. I want to pack these down and show you how compact they are when they're all stored away. Let's start with the Ohuhu, because it's pretty quick and easy once you've learned how it all stacks together. So you can throw that right down in there, and it comes with this little mesh bag. Next, this one, because you just close the lid. It's ridiculously simple, but it doesn't pack down super small. You could probably fit this inside something else inside your pack. And of course, these 2 pack flat. Once you get the hang of taking everything apart, weight-wise, they're a little heavy because they are pretty thick steel. You eventually get the hang of it. And this one, of course, you pull the pin, fold it up, and it's ready to go. That's why I love that. I mean, how freaking quick is that? It's also got a little tray for burning alcohol. And how about that? It's pretty quick on all fronts, right? So with a quick stove, you may have noticed something that the others don't really have a problem with. The opening on this thing is huge. If you've got something like the Stanley cup or pot, the one that has 2 stackable cups inside, if you've got that, it doesn't fit. It falls straight down into the middle, and you've got a problem. Now, the reason I really like this stove a lot, despite that it's bigger and heavier and does not pack down, is because it's really versatile. I'll show you why. So it's got this plate inside. This can be used on top of these little rivets, and you can burn solid alcohol fuel. You can also remove this entirely. You've got a grate down inside for your ashes. If you're building your fire, you can build your fire this way. You can also put a piece of coal or a couple coals down in here and close this and use this as a grill. And then if none of that works and you want to use something like that Stanley pot, you can flip it over and just sit this on top of a fire and feed your wood in through the side, and you've got a smaller surface to cook on. So I have an assortment of sticks that I broke up. It took maybe 3 or 4 minutes to break all of that up. I found some down limbs and just broke it up. I have several backpacking stoves at home. Sometimes it takes me 3 minutes to boil water. Sometimes it takes me 15. It all depends. Since the quick stove is so unique, I'm going to start with it. And since we're using the Stanley pot, I've got to cook upside down. So you can actually build your fire before, or start to build your fire before you put the stove on top, which is kind of neat. And then just drop this on top. Once you've got your fire rolling pretty good, just sit your pot on top and wait for the water to boil. And you just want to keep feeding sticks underneath. Not enough to like snuff it out, but you want to just keep it going so it doesn't die down. The more you keep wood in there, the faster you're going to boil water. So I definitely like this stove, though. It's probably one of the most versatile I've seen, and it's just so simple. There's not a lot that can go wrong with it. You can use it in so many different ways. You can grill on it, you can burn a fire underneath or inside it, and you can burn solid fuel in it too. So it's just a really versatile, cool stove for a very, very small price. And it's really the same deal with the Ohuhu stove. You just want to start a fire inside it. I mean, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But this one, you want to be able to let it breathe, and you want to make sure that actually, like, this stick probably a little too long. So I'm going to break it, put it back in there. Because this stove is probably, out of all these wood burning stoves, this one is the most like the BioLite, in that this is a gasification stove. What it does is the air comes up through it, and these little holes out here direct that flame, and it looks kind of like the burner on your stove at home. So you can see once it starts going, it starts to look a lot more like the BioLite, not just because the flames are shooting out of the top, but because the way the air is moving inside. It's not fully doing it yet, but once you really get the fire going, you'll actually see the air coming from these vents blowing the fire. Out of all these stoves, this one is probably the most finicky, because you've got to make sure that you got good airflow, but you also have to constantly add more fuel to it or it will die down fast. And there's also another problem. This doesn't really fit on here. Like, you can make it fit if you balance it, but that's not exactly what I would want to do with boiling hot water. I mean, it's barely on there. Even this stainless steel cup I have is just not quite large enough. So you'd probably have to use something like a pan or an even bigger pot. So this is probably good for 2 people plus, 2 to 3 people maybe. It's super sturdy. I mean, you can put just about anything on top of that and it's not going anywhere thanks to the round base. It's extremely sturdy, so you could probably put cast iron on this if you wanted and not have any problems. Same goes for really all of these stoves. They're very stable, and I believe we've got the fire like I was thinking. Yeah, see, it looks like a burner. It's really, really quite cool. The Luxada is actually probably the easiest to maintain, much like a lot of the other backpacking stoves. It's got an opening so you can continue to feed it fire without bringing the pot off of it. That was one of the problems I forgot to mention with the Ohuhu. That round, there's no opening. You've got to lift the pot off to add more sticks to it, which is kind of unfortunate. You can sort of squeeze them in under a pot, maybe, but it's also just much more difficult to actually continue to feed the fire without interrupting your cooking. This one, however, you put a pot on top, which, here's another problem. This doesn't fit this one either. You can balance it there, but it doesn't really fit. But something just ever so slightly larger, like this steel cup, does fit. Just barely. So it's just your pot or cup on top of the stove, and while it's heating up the water, you can continue to feed sticks into it. This is the same with the Emberlit or that cheap one from B-Grit. All of them have this wide opening at the front, so you can just continue to feed the fire. Even if it burns through the wood quickly, you just keep adding sticks in the opening, and it doesn't disrupt anything, which is really, really nice. And that's why I like this so much. This stove, while it's not nearly as versatile as something like the quick stove, it's just easy to operate. It's easy to put together, it's easy to keep the fire going, and it's just easy. Now, this one will hold something like a big cast iron pan, but you're just going to get a hot spot in the middle of it. It's not very big. It's sturdy enough to hold just about anything. I mean, it doesn't really move once you've got some weight on it, but you're just going to get a hot spot in the middle of the pot. So you probably want to use something like this for a one-person cooking deal or boiling water for one person. Small pots and pans. I mean, you could use it for a larger application, but like I said, you're just going to get hot spots and just be able to cook in the middle of that pot. So when all is said and done, I think all three of these are viable options under $20. And I'm going to say $20 because while this one is $25, if you opt to not get two of these with this stove, it is $20. So $20, I think all three of these are killer stoves. However, if I were to choose one to throw out, it would probably be this one. It's extremely efficient, but usually if I'm going to boil water, I want to do it on a smaller pot, and this one's a little too big. It's also a lot more to maintain as far as keeping the fire lit, and you have to lift the stove to put fire in. There's no window or something. This one doesn't pack down as much, but I really like this one a lot. If I were to choose one myself for $20, it would probably be this one, just because it's so easy to put together, it's so easy to maintain, start a fire in, and it's just super lightweight, ultra portable. And if you're backpacking, this one right here is going to be completely not noticeable in your backpack. While this one definitely will be. It's a little heavier, around closer to a pound. This one is very light. I don't remember the exact figure on how light this one is. But if you like any of these in particular, they're all linked down below, as well as the Emberlit. I'm not gonna link the Big Grit because I just don't support it. I don't think it's a good stove. I think it's cheap, and I don't think anybody should buy it. Sorry, Big Grit, but do better. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more stuff like this in the future. If there are other things like this that you would like me to compare or put to the test, or just do a video like this on, be sure to comment down below. And of course, follow us around the web. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at ModOutdoor. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at CasperTech. And until next time, live outdoors a little.
Into the danger zone. It all points right to that. I set myself aside, lead the way on this trial. If you don't know the way, we can stop and make a change. I know